I can do anything I want, baby. I ain't lost. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 99 of Movies Are Awesome, the show all about baton twirling. My name is Nathan Pottle, and thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, episode 99. Next week is 100, so that's pretty crazy. I still have no baby yet. My wife is impatiently waiting to give birth. She hasn't gone into labor or anything, so we'll see what happens next week vis-a-vis episode-wise. I might have to wait a bit. I'm feeling confident that this baby is going to be here in the next couple of days, so I'm going to just ride it out, see what happens, and if I make an episode next week, I make one. If not, sorry about that. You'll have to wait until my next opportunity. But yeah, next week, 100 episodes, and that's just crazy that I've sat down in front of this microphone and I've done this 100 times, well, almost 100 times. So that's going to be exciting. I'm really excited about that. But also what I'm excited about is today's topic. I have finally seen a new movie this year. We're talking about Raya and the Last Dragon, and I just was so excited to watch this movie. And it was released on Disney Plus because theaters are not open here in my city, so we had to watch it at home on Disney Plus. But because I wanted the authentic movie watching experience, the movie theaters are open for Uber Eats, and you can order popcorn from them. So I ordered movie theater popcorn from the theater, and this movie theater, I actually used to work there. So in my message to Uber Eats, I said, I hope everyone at the theater is doing fine, and let them know that it was me who was ordering. And then my old boss messaged me saying, hey, did you just order popcorn from us? And I said, yeah, I sure did. And we were talking a little bit, and it was nice to hear from her. But then when my order arrived, I saw that there was some extra things inside the bag that I had not ordered. So it was a really nice gesture from them to give us some little extra stuff, and we should be trying to support movie theaters where we can, because they're really struggling right now, and I want to be able to go back to movie theaters at some point and watch movies. So let's try to support them where we can, you know? But in any case, we sat down and we watched the movie, and I have some positive things to say, some negative things to say. I'm going to say overall, I liked this movie. I was very interested, very excited. But as always, when I do a review, we're going to do non-spoilers first, and then we're going to do spoilers after. There's a ton to spoil in this movie, but I'm still going to do it anyway, just because it is a brand new movie, and it feels so good to say that there's a brand new movie that we get to watch. Now, this movie was directed by Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada. Now, Carlos Lopez Estrada, he's not really known for anything. I looked up his directing history, and there wasn't really anything noteworthy. But Don Hall, he's directed the 2011 Winnie the Pooh, Moana, Big Hero 6. So he has a name in Disney animation here, so he's back in the director's chair again for Raya and the Last Dragon, and he does a good job, I feel. So the story of this movie, it's basically the main character of Raya. She is part of this group of people who are the guardians of the dragon gem, because the land used to have many dragons, but then the land was attacked by this plague type thing, and the last of the dragons sacrificed themselves and poured all of their magic into this dragon gem in order to be rid of the plague and save all of humanity. And so the dragons are no more, except for the legendary last dragon. So when the gem gets stolen and broken and divided, it is up to Raya to track down the last dragon and the remaining pieces of the dragon gem in order to bring back peace and harmony to the land. So that's basically the story. It's just this big adventure, and Raya is this warrior, fierce woman, and going around and beating people up, and the opening of the movie has some Indiana Jones type vibes because she's breaking into this temple as this rite of passage. And as we get farther into the film, we learn more about who Raya is as a character and what she likes, what she dislikes. I think that she was a very well fleshed out character, and everything about her seemed really well thought out, and the decisions that she made throughout the film I found in line with everything I've come to learn about her character. One of the big major themes of this movie is trust and friendship, and I don't want to go so far as to say it's about the power of friendship, but definitely trust and unity are two huge themes in this movie. A little bit to the movie's detriment because it kind of bats you over the head with it a little bit. It's a little on the nose and not in a fun making fun of itself in a way like how the Lego movie does it. It's more, it's a little relentless in its message as opposed to being a little more subtle, which I would prefer. But a lot of this story, a lot of the world and the characters, the architecture and everything, a lot of this is inspired by Southeast Asia. So we have a lot of Asian vibes to everything. Everything looks and feels like it's from our real world, Southeast Asia. However, this takes place in the fictional world of Kumandra. But the very heavy influence and respect for dragons and all of this kind of stuff can be found in our real world. And I really liked this world. I found it to be interesting and the way everyone was divided. So when Kumandra was one world, and it explains this at the beginning of the movie, it is all about in respect and deference to the dragons. So everything in this culture revolves around the dragons, and then when the dragons left and humanity kind of shatters itself, it breaks the land off into different countries, and it names the countries after different parts of the dragon. So there was talon, spine, heart, fang, and tail. And so Raya, she is from Heart, and that is where they keep the dragon gem, and then when it's broken up, she has to go off to the other lands, and you kind of get to see the different landscapes and the different terrains that she has to go through in order to find these dragon gems. And along the way, she meets new people and she makes new friends, and she has an old enemy from her childhood who is coming after her. Actually, now that I've brought that character up, why don't I talk about some of the characters right off the bat? I've got 3 that I've written down. Obviously, Raya, who's voiced by Kelly Marie Tran. If you're not familiar with Kelly Marie Tran, she played Rose in Star Wars The Last Jedi, and she was on screen in The Rise of Skywalker for about 14 seconds. A lot of people really didn't like her in Star Wars The Last Jedi. I can understand why, but I don't think anything having to do with the character was her fault, and she suffered a lot of unfair criticism online and a lot of racism thrown her way, which is totally not her fault. But I really liked her voice work in this movie. I felt all of the emotions and everything that Raya was going through, so I don't have any complaints about that. The last dragon, who is named Sisu, is voiced by Awkwafina, and I've always felt that Awkwafina has kind of a funny voice, and by funny I mean comical and animated, which makes her perfect for voicing an animated character, which she does in this. It definitely seems like this character of Sisu is going for Mushu type vibes. Sisu as a dragon, she is very unsure of herself and doesn't really think that she's as worthy or as accomplished of some of her other dragon siblings that she talks about throughout the film. And because she has this opinion of herself and everyone else has such a respect and reverence for dragons that when they come across her, she doesn't really know how she's supposed to accept all of this, reverence given to her, because she doesn't see herself as someone worthy of that. So she goes on a interesting journey throughout this movie. And then we have Namaari, who is voiced by Gemma Chan, and this is Raya's rival and kind of the antagonist throughout the film. They were friends for a time when they were children, and then something happens when the dragon gem is broken apart that causes them to drift apart and become fierce enemies. And it's that classic story of friend turned enemies. And as we go throughout the movie, we explore more of that. And I really appreciated the way that this story dives into their friendship and their enemyship. What do you call a relationship with someone you hate? Their mutual dislike of each other. I like how it really dives into that. That's as much of the story stuff, though, that I want to talk about before getting into the spoiler section. So we're going to leave story elements and that stuff kind of where it is right now. Let's talk about the animation quality of this movie. When I first saw the trailers advertising this movie, I wasn't really enthralled or really brought in to the animation quality. Now, At the time when the trailers came out, they were still working on the movie, so obviously it wasn't done. But now that I've seen the movie, I can honestly say that I think the animation quality is quite high. I think this movie looks really nice. I don't think it's anything jaw-dropping or groundbreaking. It's not like when I watched Coco for the first time or Toy Story 4, and I realized that those movies are both Pixar and not Disney Animation Studios, but at the same time, these movies are newer. Like Raya and the Last Dragon is newer than both of those movies. So you would think that technology has gotten better and techniques have gotten better, and it just didn't quite have that jaw-dropping effect that those other movies have. Even going back to some of Don Hall's other animated films, like the 2011 Winnie the Pooh, even though that's a 2D animated film, it looks beautiful. It's gorgeously animated. I love the look of that movie. There are aspects of that movie I don't like as much, but the look of the movie is fantastic. Or Moana looks really great with the movement of the ocean and the water and everything like that. Raya and the Last Dragon does have some really good landscapes and some really good like sweeping shots, especially when she's riding her pet Tuk Tuk. When she's riding that character around, when there's some post-apocalyptic stuff going on, I think there's some interesting visuals going on there. But the movie as a whole didn't quite wow me as far as the animation goes. One thing that did kind of surprise me though, and I don't know why it did, but this movie is not a musical. There's no songs, there's no musical sequences, there's no anything like that. It's just a animated movie. And sometimes Walt Disney Animation Studios do make movies that are not musicals. For example, Wreck-It Ralph and Big Hero 6. Those movies are both not musicals, and that's fine. But because this movie is introducing a new princess, I was kind of expecting this to be a musical. And it's not. So I think this is the first Disney princess movie that we have that's not a musical, except for Brave. But Brave is also Pixar, and Pixar doesn't do musicals at all, ever. Unless you want to count Coco, but I don't think Coco counts as a musical. So that was something that did kind of catch me off guard. I thought that we were going to get some songs, and we didn't. So that's one thing that kind of let me down about this movie. Another thing about this movie is this movie involves magic a lot. And the magic does not really have rules or anything like that. It's what's referred to as a soft magic system. I read a lot of fantasy books, and in fantasy books, they refer to two different kinds of magic systems. You have soft magic and hard magic. Hard magic is where there are very clear rules and lines, and this is how the magic works, and this is how you can use it, and you have to fit within these rules. A soft magic system like this, it doesn't really have rules. It's like, hey, well, magic is here, and it does things when the plot needs it to. And I'm fine with both, but sometimes with a movie like this, and when magic can be heavily used in the plot, I would like to know exactly how this kind of stuff works. But it's not a huge deal. It's not a complete game breaker for me. It's not self-contradictory. It's not like when I sit down and watch a Harry Potter movie and they do establish rules and then immediately break those magic rules. It's not something like that. So at least it fits in. It at least it's consistent, is what I'm trying to say. And then also I already mentioned the character of Tuk Tuk, which is this armadillo-like creature who can roll up into a ball and is really big. And Raya rides him kind of like a motorcycle, like a single-wheel motorcycle. And he's kind of a cool, fun little character. And this character, of course, is voiced by Alan Tudyk, because Disney can't just get animal sounds now. They have to get Alan Tudyk to do it. He's all over the place. And, you know, he probably recorded all of his sounds in a single day and probably got paid very well for it. So good for Alan Tudyk. But these sounds that he's making are not anything special or spectacular. I was more impressed when he was doing the chicken sounds in Moana, because I genuinely thought that it was just a chicken making noises. I feel like my voice is a little bit weird here today, so I'm sorry if I'm sounding funny or anything like that. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I just need to drink some water. I don't know. I'm going to keep recording though, and we'll see what happens. I do think, however, that is everything for non-spoilers. I do want to say I did enjoy Raya and the Last Dragon. The only negatives I have to say about it is it's not a musical, which isn't really a big deal. Some of the story elements kind of are a little obvious and a little surface type stuff, and that's about it. I think it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I will be watching it again, and I think you guys should watch it too. Whether you want to buy it right now on Disney Plus, or if you have the theaters, you can go watch it in the theater. Or if you want to wait until June, I do believe it's in June when the movie will be available on Disney Plus without the premiere access. So, Raya and the Last Dragon, I think it's really good. Let's talk about some spoilers. First thing I want to talk about is that there are some characters in this movie I do not like. First off, the baby and the monkeys. So, she's going through all of the different territories, and because this is all about trust and unity, when she goes to each of the countries, she picks up an extra person, and then she has one extra person on the journey with her. She picks up Sisu, and then she picks up the little boy who is a cook, and then she picks up the baby and the monkeys. And I didn't like these characters. I didn't buy the kind of acrobatics and stuff that this baby is doing. Even though it's a fantastical world and stuff like that, for whatever reason, it just really bugged me, and I didn't like it very much. So the baby and the monkeys is probably the biggest negative that I have coming out of this movie. I did not like their characters at all. Another thing I want to talk about is when she's going to the different kingdoms and countries and she's getting the dragon gems, it was very easy. And this movie isn't terribly long. Did I write down the runtime? Let me see. No, I did not. But it's about an hour and 47 minutes, I want to say. An hour 47 minutes. And when she's going through and getting the dragon gems, she just, gets them. It's no problem. When, she gets the first one and it's not even guarded. There's one booby trap, and that's it. And then she goes to one place, and then when she goes to the next place, and she says, oh, it's being guarded by, the most ruthless mob leader, and she just walks up next to the person, grabs the gem from them, and runs away. And that's the whole thing. So it seems like these powerful dragon gems that are imbued with the magic of dragons are so poorly guarded. There's just no security going on here. She's just walking up and taking these gems. And I understand that it's probably just to move the plot along, but I think it should have been a little harder for her to get these. I think it should have been a little harder for her to get these dragon gems and recreate everything. I think we're just talking about negative stuff right now, so why don't I just keep doing that? Another thing that I have to say is there is a point where Raya and Namaari are about to face off, and Namaari is she has her bow drawn and is pointed towards Sisu because she wants Sisu to come with her in order to help have not only her people seen better in the eyes of the other countries, but also to help stop the plague. And there's a name for the plague, and I don't remember what it is. It's the purple monster mist thing. I don't remember what it's called. But anyway, Raya flicks her sword, and it maybe is Raya's fault that Namaari shot Sisu, but we're not entirely sure because it's not really explored. And I would just want to say that's a really cool sword that she has. It extends and turns into this flexible whip type sword, and then she retracts it all back and then it's a sword again, and I think it's really cool. But going back to this moment, Namaari shoots Sisu and she gets shot and falls into the water and is dead. And then the scene pretty abruptly cuts from that moment to Raya in the city, hunting down Namaari, trying to find out where she is, even though they were both standing practically next to each other. And it just feels like there's a piece missing, that there was some kind of scene in between these two scenes that bridges that gap that got cut for whatever reason. But it just felt very jarring going from the scene of Sisu's death, and then we don't even really get a proper send-off for this character. And then immediately Raya is just filled with rage and hunting down Namaari, even though she didn't need to hunt Namaari down because they were standing right next to each other 20 seconds ago in the movie. So it feels like some part of the movie is missing there. Maybe there's a deleted scene or something that'll get released that helps bridge that gap, but it definitely feels very jarring and out of place. And then also focusing on the death of Sisu when all the dragons come back at the end and we have all the dragons again and they're like dancing around the water in the air and they resurrect Sisu. I don't really know how that works, and that kind of goes back to what I said in the non-spoiler section of some of the magic. They do some important things with this magic, and we don't really understand how, because it seems like a lot of this magic is tied into the elements. Like, she's a really good swimmer, her brother could make rain, and another one could shapeshift and other things, but there's no word about like dragon resurrection. And I want to know how it worked. Also, like I said in the non-spoiler section, it's very on the nose when it comes to like the unity and trust. They talk about it a lot, and Sisu seems to really believe that if you trust other people first, they'll be willing to trust you. And she kind of learns that not everyone can be trustworthy just at face value. And she learns that not everyone can be trustworthy simply just on face value. You have to get to know these people and understand them. And that's why later Sisu knows about Namaari and she's learned about her from Raya. So she says, like, I'm choosing to trust you, and then we see how that goes. She gets shot. But the whole unity and trust thing is such a big deal. And right from the very beginning of the movie, when her dad is making the soup, and she says, well, like, we just need to, add more spices. And the dad is like, no, we got to add this from this part of the world, and this from this part of the world, and this from this part of the world. And each country gets its own ingredient in the soup, and it makes the soup delicious. Because when they're all united, life is delicious, or something like that. However you want to interpret that, right? And then as she's going through the different countries getting the dragon gems, she picks up another person along the way. Like I said, the little boy who's a cook, and then the baby and the monkeys, and then the big warrior guy who's voiced by Benedict Wong, and then the last person they pick up is Namaari. And Namaari is kind of an enemy at first, and then through the power of friendship, they become friends again, and it's all nice and sweet. And it kind of has a nice ending, this movie. I like the way the story plays out as an entire through line, and there's a lot of really good comedic moments in this, especially with the little boy who's a cook, and he's like this fast-talking salesman type character. I really like any time that he's on screen. And then, even though we have good humor moments, we also have good emotion as well, because there's a lot of loss in this movie. There's a lot of people who have been taken by this plague, or like, you don't die from it, you turn into a statue, and then if you defeat the plague, all the statues turn back to humans. So like, these people aren't dead, but they're gone. So Raya struggling with that, with the loss of her father, and all of these characters have lost people to this plague, and they're all fighting towards the same thing, but at the same time they're all still so divided that the bringing of them all together is what's important. But like I said, I would have liked it to be a little less on the nose. I don't really know if there's any other spoilery type things to talk about. I think I've gone through everything in my list. The only thing is, I think that Raya is a great character, and I think she's a lovely addition to all of the Disney princesses. Even though she doesn't sing and she doesn't marry a prince, that's fine. They're going in a different direction, which makes sense. So, on the whole, Raya and the Last Dragon, I think it's a good movie, and I'm going to start to wrap things up here. So I'm going to ask you guys, did you see Raya and the Last Dragon? Did you like it? What did you think about it? I would love for you to let me know. You can find me on social media. You can reach out to me on Twitter at PottleNathan, and you can follow the show on Instagram at Movies Are Awesome Podcast. If you have not done so already, please feel free to subscribe to the show. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It really means a lot to me, and stay tuned for next week for episode 100. I'm really excited about that one, so stay tuned for that episode, and as always, if you have nothing else to do, go watch more movies.